Okay, am I audible and visible? Good evening, everyone. Today we are going to begin by looking at the passage, the last passage that we scanned in the last class, and there seemed to have been a confusion regarding a particular word. And this was pointed out to me by my student Ishan. So we will do that again. It's from the witches, one of the witches' speeches, Macbeth, and here it goes. I hope you can see the screen. So these are the lines. This is a passage. Can you see the lines? Double, double, toil and trouble, fire, burn, and cauldron bubble, scale of dragon, tooth of wolf, witch's mummy, maw and gulf. Double is a multisyllabic word, and so is trouble. Cauldron or cauldron is a multisyllabic word. Bubble, dragon, witches, mummy, maw and gulf are monosyllabic words. Fire, burn, scale, tooth, wolf, maw, gulf. So now we have to put the accent marks. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire, burn, cauldron, bubble, scale, dragon, tooth, wolf, witches, mummy, maw, gulf. So there is no problem whatsoever with most of the lines. They are very simple. Double, double, toil and trouble. They are catalectic, as you can see. They have a feminine ending. The lines double, double, toil and trouble. I'm sorry. Of course, being being trochaic lines, they should have feminine endings. So no catalectic there. But the problem you find in the second line. You come to that. Let's scan the other lines. Scale of dragon, tooth of wolf. So you have a catalectic here. This is a catalectic, which is mummy, maw and cull. So you have a catalectic in the fourth line as well. But look at this line here. The second line, fire, burn, and apparently you break it here. and then where do you break? You break it here, and you are left with a hypermetrical which is not compatible with in a trochaic passage. So what do you do? So it was pointed out to me by Ishan last evening, and I thought that it might just be possible that Shakespeare is pronouncing fire as fire, or something like that. If fire is one syllable, I should mention that there should be no confusion regarding it. But if you pronounce it, you notice that it has a curved sound, fire. So it's kind of halfway between two syllables and one syllable. So fire, if you pronounce it as, if you stretch this curve a bit, it becomes fire. So in that case, it becomes fire, burn and cauldron, bubble. So it's very curious in this sense of strangeness that comes from pronouncing this word in this way, pronouncing fire as fire. I think adds to the strangeness that the witches are all about. Their speeches, if you see them, they are very strange. So it adds to that general atmosphere of strangeness. Okay, so if you break the line after fire, you erase this. Okay, fire, burn and cauldron, bubble. No problem with that. So I am not sure whether Shakespeare meant it to be like this way. If he meant fire to be pronounced as fire, I'll have to do a bit of research to know that. But if you do that, if you see fire as having two syllables instead of one, the problem is solved. So these are the kinds of things, details and oddities that you need to look out in a passage, you need to pay attention to while scanning a passage. Remember that never take um, a word for granted. In other words, do not confuse between the number of vowels in a word and the number of syllables, because they are not the same thing. Syllables are vowel sounds. Okay, so I thought I would begin. Okay, I'm not sure if you can hear me. Am I audible? I hope I am audible still. Okay. Um, we will look at a few more examples. The more examples we look at, the better grasp we have over scansion. So it's all about practice. Actually, this example, this particular passage, double, double toil and trouble, fire, burn, and cauldron bubble. This use of the word fire reminded me of a song by Jim Morrison, and it goes like, you know that it would be untrue, you know that I would be a liar if I was to say to you, girl, we couldn't get much higher. And then there is a refrain, come on, baby, light my fire. So he is pronouncing it as fire in that song. If you listen to that song, so come on, baby, light my fire. Okay, it has a soft ending, fire. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Come on, baby, light my fire. So there is an odd connection between Shakespeare and Jim Morrison here. Okay, okay, there is a request uh, to do a scansion of Solitary Reaper. Okay, we can do that right away. Solitary Reaper, the Solitary Reaper by William Wordsworth. We will, how many lines should we scan? Let's scan the first 4 lines first. Behold her single in the field, yon solitary Highland lass, reaping and singing by herself. Stop here or gently pass. Read the passage a couple of times. Behold her single in the field, yon solitary Highland lass, reaping and singing by herself. Stop here or gently pass. Behold her single in the field, yon solitary Highland lass, reaping and singing by herself. Stop here or gently pass. So you have a bit of a staccatoed iambic rhythm here. You have the sense of faltering steps, and you have the sense of pauses that are introduced somewhere between syllables, between words. So, but the dominant rhythm that you get while reading out this passage is iambic. Behold her single in the field, yon solitary Highland lass, reaping and singing by herself. Stop here or gently pass. Okay, so we begin this poem. We, after having read this poem out aloud, um, we have the feeling that this is an iambic passage. This follows an iambic rhythm, but we are not sure. In order to confirm our suspicion, we need to follow the steps, as I have already mentioned. Behold her single in the field, solitary. How many syllables is solitary? Solitary. Reaping and singing. We are isolating the multisyllabic words first. Okay. Let's put the stress marks right away. Behold. So the word is behold. Behold her single in the field, yon solitary Highland lass, reaping and singing by herself. Stop here or gently pass. Okay, this is how you scan the first 4 lines of Wordsworth's The Solitary Reaper. Let's look for the variations now. First line, third foot is a, what do you call this? A meter containing 2 unstressed syllables. You call it piddic, right? The second line, second foot, the same thing. 2 unstressed syllables in a meter is called a piddic. In the third line opens with a trochee. Remember that this is a iambic line, so anything apart from an iamb is a variation. So you have one stressed syllable followed by an unstressed one that opens a line, which is called trochee. And you also have a piddic here, third line, third foot. You have a trochee here in the last line, the first foot of the last line, fourth line. Let us also count the number of meters in each line. First line you have 1, 2, 3, 4 meters. Second line also contains 4 meters, so tetrameter so far. Third line you have 4 meters again, but in the fourth line, the last line, contains 3 meters. Stop here or gently pass. So let's read it again. Behold her single in the field, yon solitary Highland lass, reaping and singing by herself. Stop here or gently pass. So the prosodic name of the given passage is iambic tetrameter. Although the fourth line contains 3 meters, therefore it is an example of a trimeter with the variations that I have just pointed out. So any more requests, any more poems that you want me to scan? Ishan writes, I really don't understand how the dumb rhythm plays out phonetically. Let's not go into phonetics right now, but you have to, of course, you have to do it by your ear. You have to understand that if a line contains syllables that we can identify as 1 and 2, an iambic passage should sound like 1 2 1 2, where you hit the second syllable, whereas in a trochaic passage you hit the first syllable and it becomes 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. When you have an addition or an introduction of dactyl. When you have an anapest in an iambic line, and you must remember that anapests occur in iambic passages only, and dactyls occur in trochaic passages only. There is no exception to this rule, but it doesn't mean that an iambic passage cannot have a trochaic line, or vice versa, just like we saw in the case of Shelley's poem to a Skylar in the last class. Okay, so let's look at a few more examples that I have chosen for you. Okay, we did this, right? Hail to the... Yes, we have already done this. So let's look at the next passage. I have decreased the font size a bit. Uh, Please let me know if you can read them. I hope you can read this passage. The lines are rather long, therefore I have decreased the font size. Let's read this aloud. Once upon a midnight dreary. This is from The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this and nothing more." Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary, so clearly trochaic, over and over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. So 1 2 1 2. Once upon a midnight dreary. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1. It goes like that. Clearly iambic. So let's isolate the. Okay, let's. I will isolate the multisyllabic words first. Remember that you need to follow the steps in order to ensure that you don't end up making a mistake. Upon midnight, dreary, pondered, weary, over many. This will be quaint, curious, volume, forgotten, nodded, nearly, napping, suddenly, tapping, gently, rapping, rapping again, chamber, visitor, muttered, tapping, chamber, only, nothing. I hope I didn't miss anything. First, we will put the accents upon on the second syllable. O, upon. Midnight. Dreary. Pondered. Weak. Weary. Over. Many. Quaint. Curious. Volume. Forgotten. Forgotten on the second syllable. There are three syllables here. Forgotten. Lore. Nodded. Nearly. Napping. Suddenly. Came, yeah, came should be stressed as well. Tapping. Yes, someone as well. Gently. Rapping. Rapping my chamber door. Visitor. Muttered. Tapping chamber door. Only, nothing more. Please keep in mind that we have to look for trochees, not ions. And we have to divide the lines into feet in such a way that we get maximum number of trochees. So you could cut after upon, but that would give you a hypermetrical, which we are not supposed to find in a trochaic passage. So you have to cut after up. So you get a variation here and here. First foot and fifth foot. The lines are rather long. The number of feet in each line is quite a lot actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Over many, or perhaps over many a, because it comes together. Over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. Over many a, not over many a quaint and not like that, but over many a quaint, one, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Over many a, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping. as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. So you have a catalytic in the second line and fourth line. Tis some tis some visitor eye comes together. Visitor eye muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Only only this and nothing more. So how many feet do you find? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is very unusual. The first line is composed of 8 feet. What about the second line? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So uneven number of, sorry, you have 6 feet here, and this is catalectic, it doesn't count as a foot. So hexa hexameter catalectic, trochaic hexameter catalectic, second line. First line has to be octameter. Octa means 8. Third line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, octameter, trochaic octameter. Fourth line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you have this one, catalectic, which is not really a foot. So 8, 7, 8, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this one is 6, and this one is 3. These are incomplete feet, therefore they do not really count as meters or feet. They are catalectics. So uneven uh, line lengths. Okay, so I hope you have followed. Okay, let's look at another example. And this one is by Edgar Allan Poe again. It's from a poem called Annabel Lee. It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea that a maiden there lived whom you may know, or you can choose not to stress whom, know, by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. So, what does a passage sounds like? It sounds as if it's iambic, but it's a bit slower than how an iambic passage is supposed to sound, right? So it was many, you have the sense of the lines being dragged. It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. So it's basically iambic, but it's slower than iambic. So we will find out what actually is going on here. So where do you break the line? Where do you divide? Which is the first foot? So you could break it after here, but in that case you would end up with very uneven kinds of meters subsequently, and it would look like this, which basically makes no sense. It was many and many. Sorry, it would be. And then you would have a catalectic at the end of an iambic passage, or a passage which sounds at least as if it were iambic. So you cannot have this. You cannot divide the meters in this way. What you have to do is you have to realize that there is another kind of meter that goes with iamb, which is this: two unstressed syllables followed by a stressed syllable, which is called anapestic. An anapest. This is an anapest. Two unstressed syllables followed by a stressed syllable is an anapest. So you have to look for anapests. You have to identify anapests and divide the lines in such a way that you get mostly anapests. With that in mind, let's do it. It was me, ni and me, ni a year a go. So at the end of this, you have uh, um, an iamb, which interestingly becomes a variation in this case, because anapestic lines, or an anapestic passage is a passage where there are mostly anapests, and if you have any foot which is not an anapest, it automatically becomes a variation. In a king done by the sea, so you have Pyrrhic and iamb, that a maid and there lived whom you may know. You have Pyrrhic and iamb again, by the name of Anne Abel. This is, of course, hypermetric. Um, Anapest. This is not. This is an iamb. So this is a variation. And this maid, and she lived with no other. Thought this is an iamb and a variation in this case, than to love and be loved by me. This is a pity. Okay. Okay. The next example. Let's take the first four lines of this passage. I chose this example because it's an opposite of what we just looked at. It's an opposite of um, anapestic rhythm, which is to say, this is an example of a dactylic rhythm. So we will go about it right away. Just for a handful of silver he left us, just for a ribbon to stick in his coat, found the one gift of which fortune bereft us, lost all the others she. So it should look like something like this. Just for a handful of silver he left us, Trochee. Just for a riband stick stick in his comes together. this should be stressed. Let's verb. Okay. In an example of trochaic rhythm in a passage. So the dominant foot, dominant meter, kind of meter that you need to look for in this passage is a dactyl. What does a dactyl look like? It looks like this. One stressed syllable followed by two unstressed ones. How do you spell dactyl? So you need to look for dactyls. And after you have identified dactyls, and notice that most of the feet are dactyls, so anything apart from a dactyl is a variation. For example, the final foot of the first line, this is a variation. This is also a variation because it's catalectic. You have a variation at the end of third line and fourth line as well, which is a catalectic. Okay. Okay, so that's all I had to tell you, I had to discuss. And I hope you have followed my lectures closely, and I hope I have been able to make complete sense. If you still have questions, you can ask me, you can send me your questions, and I'll be happy to respond. Are there any questions? Okay. In Solitary Reaper, we put an unstressed mark on the second word of the fourth stanza, even though it was an adverb, which was the second word. Stop here. Here, right. You stress the word stop, which is a verb. Stop is obviously a verb and it should be stressed here. I'm not so sure. Stop here. If you, it was, okay, let's look at that passage again. What was it? Stop here or gently pass. Yes, it's an adverb. You could actually stress this word. But if you don't stress the word, if you leave it unstressed, you get a variation, but the overall, the general prosodic structure remains intact. So you will come across these small monosyllabic words from time to time, which are perhaps adverbs, uh, even adjectives, that you will feel like not stressing and moving on to the next line or the next feed. Uh, and it doesn't really matter that much, because sometimes what happens is there is uh, there is an absence of synchronization between beat and stress or accent, right? So behold her single in the field, this is an iambic passage, so it should sound like 1 2 1 2 1 2, but there are variations as well. Sometimes those variations collide with the beat, the dominant insistent beat. Behold her single in the field, the beat comes on in, but in is unstressed, right? So if we follow the beat, we might, if we follow the beat very closely and very um, you know persistently, or if we only follow the beat, we will end up stressing syllables that are not stressed and unstressing syllables that are usually stressed. For example, behold her single in the field, yon solitary. You will also end up um, stressing, putting two accents on the single word, solitary. But we know that that doesn't happen. One word, one stress. You don't stress twice in one word. Yon solitary highland lass. It doesn't go like that. It doesn't happen. Yon solitary highland lass. Reaping and singing. So if we go by the beat, this is wrong, right? It should be reaping and singing by herself. 1 2 1 2, but there should be a scope for variation, and that is precisely how Wordsworth is arranging um, his feet or his meters. Reaping and singing by herself, stop here or gently pass. So you could have a stress, stop here or gently pass. It also uh, depends on how you are actually, what the poet is intending with these words. Stop here, so there is a sense of urgency here, because the the line closes with an exclamation, so it's an interjection. He is almost commanding the reader to stop here, right here, right now, stop here or gently pass. You could have an accent. Okay, so well pointed out. Any more questions? How does one know which word is stressed in such cases, since we won't know whether a passage is iambic or trochaic? So, yes, go by the general rule that the parts of speech that I mentioned, nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, are usually stressed. Um, so, in case of monosyllabic words, in multisyllabic words, in words in yes, in words that contain more than one syllable will always be stressed, whether it is a preposition or adverb or adjective or verb or noun. If there are two syllables, one of them will always be stressed. Okay, so you cannot have a multisyllabic or polysyllabic word that is not stressed at all at any place. So how does one know which word is stressed? Yes, just like I said, go by the rule. That is the easiest thing to do. Okay, but if you miss a stress, for example, if you do not stress here and stop here, it's not really a major mistake, because the rhythm remains intact. Okay. Okay, so that's all for today. I hope you understood what I said. I hope you followed. And if there is still any difficulty regarding English prosody, let me know. And with this, I conclude today's class. Thank you very much.